Welcome to the Big Picture Blueprint. Mason, how's it going today?
It's going, man. It's one of those days. Just had a conversation that hyped me up about business, and especially since I'm using his service and using his business. But yeah, business is going great. We're going to the bank right after this for the fund we're launching, which we'll be very excited to share with everyone shortly. But how are you doing, Dan?
Dude, I'm good. Business is busy, crazy. Yeah, got to make it over to the bank. But we had a great guest today who also hyped me up, and I got to ask him all kinds of questions just selfishly to use in my business. So Nickolas Nick, owner of Lead Mining Pros, walks us through how he built this massive lead generation machine, which is Lead Mining Pros. And so whether it's houses, apartments, land, whatever it might be, he essentially created a killer acquisition team that you can hire to get the data, pull it, skip trace it, and call it, and then provide you those warm leads. And what he's built is really cool. He clearly knows how to hire, train, and maintain good people, and knows how to cold call. So let's bring him in to pick his brain a bit.
All right, Nickolas Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing so good. Thank you, Mason. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the show. I've been using your product for a few months now, and it's going to be fun to get to unpack this business and really get to understand how you've created, how you've built it, and how you're adding so much value to the land investing community specifically. But before we get into that, Nickolas, tell us your background. Where are you from? How did you get from a kid to owning a seven-figure company?
Yeah, no doubt. And I know it's mind blowing to me. I'm actually on track to hit 1.8 million in sales this year, which is crazy. We have very high profit margins, so I will be netting over $1 million no matter what this year, which is very exciting. But my background, I always say my life is a lot like a Bible story. Steve Jobs has this great quote, which is, "You can only connect the dots looking backwards," right? And sometimes when we're going through this life, to everyone watching and you guys, like, you may be in a shitty fucking employment, excuse my language, that might happen a couple times. But you might be in a shitty employment situation right now, but like you're learning, right? And that's what's important. I've been through so much. I've been through a lot of people don't even believe my management stories from back in the day. But what we go through hardened us to a degree. And then it's up to us to use that hardening to then change our lives, right? So I'll tell you my story now that I finished my little motto there. But yeah, so I was raised by a very intentional father. I think he could see that I was like a little motherfucker. I'm like running around. I'm sure he saw me like picking on kids, and my dad just kept preaching, be diplomatic, hear everybody out, make sure you're always providing a great experience, don't alienate everyone. That's why I said I think he could tell, because like at age 5, I'm like, what do these words mean? I don't even know, right? And he was really good. And I didn't realize it till, of course, I was older, maybe even till after he passed, that I was like, dude, my dad did not do anything by accident, right? We think that they do, but he really didn't. So anyways, then I got lucky. I entered the restaurant industry right away. I ran restaurants from like worked in restaurants from 16 to 30. I became a manager like right away. So after 2 years, I'm managing. I think I'm 18, 19 years old. I start being a manager again, like from my dad, just pounding morals and integrity into me. Then my management career was crazy. I ran places like IHOP, Dunkin' Donuts, Panera Bread, real famous sports bar chain around here called Leroy Selman's. He was a famous football player. It was a really cool experience. And running restaurants was unique, right? People shit on you for working in restaurants. I mean, like peers, coworkers, other jobs I've had. I remember I got a job as an executive after my restaurant career, and they were like, you got to stop talking about your restaurant experience. It's making you look stupid. Someone said that to me once, in a whole nother career. And so it's like, it really isn't this glorious career decision, to be honest with you. However, I really made the most out of it. I did everything to the highest level. I remember one of my friends talked shit about me once when I was in that, and he told another friend of mine, he goes, why, like, look at Nick. Why is Nick so confident as a restaurant manager? He's just a restaurant manager. Why is he treating us like he's an executive somewhere? Like, literally people would get mad at me because I took my career. And that's how you know you're doing a great job. You know, it's like, I don't do anything unless I own that shit. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean I owned any of these restaurants, because I did. I was very poor. I never had more than $3,000 in my bank account till I was 32 years old. Okay. Lead mining yesterday made $12,000, my business. So it's like, it's just crazy, the tidal wave. But so I ran restaurants forever, dealt with a lot of bad bosses. I'll just give one little example. A boss was sleeping with an employee, and I brought it up to the vice president, and I got fired. Just an example. Some great leadership role models I've had in my life, and that's just one off the top of my head. But anyway, so then I became, I wanted to leave the restaurant industry. I had enough. 13 years went by. I realized I was like a step above everybody. And I was like, what am I doing here? I'm carrying these people. I'm carrying everyone, right? And again, great feeling to have as long as it's the reality. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I quit. I walk out, actually, on that career. And I'm glad I walked out, because I always say, if I would have told them I was quitting, they would have thrown more money at me and I would have stayed, right? And I always joke, when you're really done, you almost got to walk. Because if you're that good, your boss isn't going to let you quit. And if he doesn't let you quit and you got to go, there's an issue, right?
Golden handcuffs.
That's that, right? Exactly. I burn those bitches. I burn the boats on the golden handcuffs. So then I applied for a job at a company called Clever Investor. You may have heard of it. Okay. Cody Sperber, he teaches people how to flip houses. I had no idea. I've been flipping burgers my whole life. I have no idea. You do what with real estate? We're mentoring. What's mentoring? Is that like therapy for business people? Like, I was so new. I had no idea what was going on. Within 10 months, I got 3 promotions, and I became the executive overseeing their entire mentorship division. I ran 7 departments. I had like 50 employees. It was amazing. I loved it, and I thrived at it. Then over the next 2 years while I ran it, I increased customer satisfaction through the roof. If you really think about what restaurant manager means, it means I'm a user experience expert. Every customer that comes in my restaurant was a user. How's my host stand? How's my server? How's my food? How's my bathrooms? How's my floor? Right? Every little thing matters. How's the paper towels? Were they clumped? Were there any? You know, it's like every little thing matters. So I took that brain and I plugged it into coaching. And I was never a sales guy. I was always in fulfillment. I've never in my life was I in sales, which makes sense because restaurant is service. It's not sales. Like they tell you what they want. I don't sell them a burger. They came and sat down because they want a burger, right? So it's all service. So I took that, and within 3 months, I completely annihilated our refund rate inside of the coaching company just by taking that level of detail and making sure every new customer was taken care of. So that went amazing. Then we're getting into lead mining now. So then I ended up, things didn't go so well for me there, right? Being a restaurant manager, being plugged into a highly politically correct office, as you could tell with some of my language already, politically correct stuff doesn't jive too well. And it just really wasn't working out. They loved my results. They did not love the way I spoke. Okay. And so then I requested, I saw the writing on the wall, and I offered them to give me a 50% pay cut so I could start to work from home. I was like, let me work from home. You'll never have to look at me in the face again. You don't like working with me? I don't like working with you. Get me out of here. Okay. I go work from home. They cut my pay in half. But what I did is I took all my free time and I began cold calling, all of it. Because in this program, part of what we did is I taught people how to cold call. So I was like, well, I've seen it work for them. It's going to work for me. What I did was I went live on Facebook every day for 4 months, and I cold called live on Facebook. I didn't know what else to do. I'm like, I thought I wanted to be an executive my whole life. And guess what? That sucks just as bad as being a restaurant manager. Okay. It's the same thing. I'm just not sweaty and greasy at the end of the day. So then I knew I had to change my life. And within 2 months, people were calling me up, and I wasn't even offering it as a service, but they were like, hey, could you call for me? I see you're calling every day. You think you could work some of my leads in there? I was like, yeah, $150. That's where I started. Then I went to 200. And to this day, that was 7 years ago. To this day, it's only $220 to hire us for that same package I was selling so many years ago. But it was really cool. And one customer led to three led to five. And then one day, this is where the story ends. One day I saw a Filipino. I'm really competitive. So one day I log into a Facebook wholesaling group and I see a Filipino in broken English advertising their call center. And I was like, what are you doing, Nick? You gonna let this chick outdo you, bro? Are you gonna be out-marketed over here? And I made a Facebook post and it went viral and I got 290 comments on it, 350 likes. And the next day I signed up 20 people. And then I actually called my job right away that same day. At the end of it, I quit. Okay. And then that was the beginning of lead mining. Since that day, we've never done less than $7,000 a week in sales. Right now, we're averaging about $40,000 a week in sales 7 years in. And yeah, it's been a total blessing to my life.
That's amazing. And Nickolas, thank you for sharing the story. I think a lot of people, just like you said, might hear the restaurant industry background and hesitate away from it. But working in restaurants, it's hard work. And managing the people that work in restaurants is even harder work because you're working with a lot of different personalities, a lot of people. I mean, every once in a while, especially at the establishments that you work, are careerists. They want to work in fast food or the high churn dining forever. And a lot of them are kids that are coming in for summer jobs or just young people that are bouncing from place to place. So it's working with a lot of different personalities. It's a lot of times having, a ton of corporate systems in place that might make a ton of sense and might not make a ton of sense that you as the manager have to implement. So you are used to getting it from both ends, from your employees as well as corporate, and just the high pace environment of, you might get busy with lead mining pros and might have a bunch of orders come in and you're like, dude, I've been quadruple sat with, 4-6 tops and I can handle this better than I can, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm super excited to jump into the business of lead mining pros. I use it actively right now. I just had another campaign that's getting started, I believe today, probably. But Dan, I'll pass it to you to dive in.
Yeah, I've tried to bookmark everything I want to say in my head there because there was a lot of good points made and quite the interesting background. It didn't come from a family of business owners, it sounds like. But what you said right at the beginning, Nickolas, about the Steve Jobs quotes of you can only connect the dots in reverse is so true. Talking to people, I'm sure both of you can relate. It sounds like we're so planned and strategic and, I knew I was going to do this and that. And it's like, no. Owning a business, you're just like falling down a cliff, trying not to die, just figuring things out as you go. It sounds really strategic in hindsight, but in reality, that's just not the case. But without going on too many tangents here, I wanted to, kind of continue the story. So now you have a bunch of clients coming in, you're cold calling for them. So are you doing that all yourself? When did you start hiring other people? And then also, it seems like today you're very focused on land, from what I understand. So how did you stumble on that niche as you progress forward?
Yeah. So first thing is, I was the only employee for the first 3 months. We didn't even have a website for the first 3 months. I did over $250,000 in sales, just myself. Like, we just blew. I was all American. I didn't even have foreign callers back then. Now I have both. I really don't talk about the foreign callers. It's really about the Americans. They're our differentiator. But I think leaning into the Americans early on was my viral move, right? And to this day, I'm the only one that supplies Americans. I mean, other people will use that word, but you ask them where they're living. Where do they live? My employees live in the United States, okay? And they're not like expatriates that were like, they moved to Mexico to fulfill their dream of working in a call center in Mexico. Okay, I don't think so. It says no American ever. So it's like when the other people, they often have those. So that really propulsed me in a big way. And then I think when I signed up those 20 clients, I knew I was done, right? In the sense of being the guy. And I'll never forget the day that I really knew I was done. I was cold calling. I'm doing cold calling invoices. I created these insane spreadsheets. Like we could do a follow-up to this where I show you guys my P&L. My P&L is insane. My trackers are insane. I can't even believe, I was like Willy Wonka for like 7 months, and I just built this chocolate factory. And I was like, how the hell did I do this? I have no idea how it even happened. So that was really great. And I made all these systems. I was updating them every day. I was working probably 18 hours a day. My system was I would call all day on a Zoom call that only recorded me. And then I would have all my calls on speaker. And I would then at the end of every day watch the entire Zoom call back and cut it up into individual calls and analyze my calls and grade my calls. And I think that a big part of why I got so great so fast is I just became maniacal about being the best in the world. And it worked. I tell you, if you ever watched a video of you absolutely sucking at something, there's no greater motivator to either turn off the video or stop sucking, right? There's the two options. So I start hiring. I bring in like 6 people. Okay. My original team, I had all 6 people there. I actually still have that video. I think it's on YouTube today, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually recorded it and I put it out there and I trained these 6 people. They stayed with me. Some of them stayed with me for 3 years. Okay. This original core 6. And it was a beautiful thing. So I hired about 3 to 6 months in. And the way I hire is I love working, hence the restaurant career. I only hire jobs I don't want to do. I will never hire for a job I do want to do. That doesn't make any sense to me. So sending invoices, get out of here. Following up with clients, get out of here. Updating the spreadsheets at the end of the night, get the fuck out of here. I don't have to do that shit. That's someone else. Then I held on the cold calling for a little bit because I was so good. And then I ended up hiring that team of cold callers. And then I was just a manager through and through, basically the whole time. So it answers those 2 questions. The last question, I believe, was how do we get into land? If I'm not mistaken. I joke with land. I always say, I didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And land actually found me. So Travis King, which you guys may have heard of him, Travis King actually found me several months ago. And he's like, hey, I want to try you out for a land campaign. I think you'd be great. No one's doing this. This is awesome. Then Travis King hires me and gets crazy results. Then he has me in his mastermind as a guest speaker, and I live speak in front of the mastermind. Then he has a podcast with Joe McCall where he says, have you heard of lead mining pros? And then Joe hires me. Joe closes 3 deals, okay? And then between those 2 land tycoons closing deals and having big mouths, no complaints here. I love you guys very much. Land found us. It wasn't on my radar at all. And then when you mixed American callers with land, the biggest mistake land investors are making right now is they're calling their leads with foreign people. And the reason why that's a huge mistake is land is finite. If houses, there's millions of houses in every city. The land, there's like 3,000 records. In every city, like we don't have enough leads to have foreign callers burn through those leads. So when I had the Americans, Travis called it. Having the Americans plus the landowners, our results just blew up. And I'm just holding on for dear life. At this point, like I'm just making sure. I joke with lead mining that I am not in control of lead mining success. Lead mining is an exploding rocket. All I'm doing is holding on to it, hoping I can steer it, in the right direction.
Sure. So, all right, couple points I got to make. Early on in that, you mentioned you made your first $250,000 without even having a website. And I think this is really important to emphasize because, Mason and I know one of Mason's buddies who's starting a land business, and it's a bit putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. And I see this all the time where when starting any sort of venture, people put all kinds of time and capital into infrastructure or employees or whatever it might be because they don't want to go do the hard work of actually making the cold calls or whatever they have to do. So when I think about starting anything, like the way that Mason and I started Ground Up Partners, our land funding company, we thought, what is the lowest or quickest way we can go get proof of concept, get deals, fund them, and make sure this works like we think it will? And that's how we did it before engaging attorneys and starting a fund, right? And so you wanted to make sure you had a business before go spending money on employees and so on and so forth. So that's a really important point. And I just wanted to highlight that.
Dan, real quick too, is lead mining never cost me a fucking dime that it didn't make. And that's because I applied the philosophy you just said. I don't want to go out there and create overhead and sign up. I had a dialer that was $200 a month that I'm already spending because I'm cold calling myself. So that's not a cost to the business. I already had lists and skip tracing and everything else. It didn't cost me a dime. We were profitable from day one. So just to support what you're saying, why it's important is we were profitable from day one on that.
Yep. No, absolutely. Mic drop there. So the other point I wanted to make is what you said about foreign callers. And I just wanted to emphasize that point. So I just have in-house guys that work for me that do the calling, and it works very effectively, especially understanding the avatar and the seller avatar for land in a lot of parts of the country. I haven't done business everywhere, but I have in a lot of different parts of the country, is older and very skeptical of scams. So just when someone's not American, that tends to cause worry, even if they were potentially a motivated seller. So strongly agreed. The only caveat to that, the first employee I ever had a British accent, and British accents do very well on the phone. So maybe you could have a premium package of people from the UK calling, because Americans perceive that as, I don't even know, higher class.
Right. Yeah. Right. There's an air to their mysteriosity. Right.
Yes. But I'll stop there, Mason.
Yeah. It's really fascinating seeing the journey, because it really is how business should work for people, where you can see the joy that you're having doing it. And obviously there's been plenty of sleepless nights and it's not all glory, of course. But you match something to your skill set. And as the business grew and there was more, departments essentially within it, from bookkeeping to finance and everything in between, you were able to effectively delegate that, which is really exciting, and it's really cool, and it's a really useful service, and you're really fair with your pricing, which is great too, on my end. But what does the team look like now? Because I think there's a lot of people that we can apply so many of the lessons to everything, from Dan and I starting Ground Up Partners to Dan and I starting this podcast. If we recorded on, we have decent microphones and decent webcams, but we're at our house in our home offices. You don't need everything to get started with a business. But Nickolas, right now, what does your team look like?
So I have about 30 employees, mostly American cold callers. What I've created is very unique. I'm a big on math, so I'm a big numbers guy. Big numbers guy. Okay. And I track everything. Absolutely. I mean, I don't, my team does, but I absolutely track everything. So that's one of the biggest things that I do. So what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. What does your team look like right now? You said a majority of them are American cold callers. And then just quick question on that. Are they 1099 or are they W-2? Are they?
Everyone's 1099. I'm not taking on any additional expenses that I need to. I'm not paying the government. What we don't realize about employees, W-2s, is your employer is paying half of your taxes. Okay. Yep. No one knows that. We pretend like we don't know that. But if I bring on a W-2 employee, I'm paying 15 to 20 more % for that person than I normally would be, so definitely that matters a lot. Most of my people are just production workers, is what I've created. There's only 2 positions that I pay people not to work. And when I say not to work, I don't mean they don't work. I mean, every other position is like, plumbers don't show up unless something needs to be plumbed. Builders don't show up unless something needs to be built, right? Well, that's how my company works. If there's no cold calls need to be made, I have no cold calling cost. If we're done with text messaging, I have no text messaging costs. So everything I do scales with me. So I'm about 65% profit. And I'm about 65% profit no matter how busy we are. We get super slow. I make $1,000 a week. I'm making $650. I'm doing $100,000 a week. I'm making $65,000. So this thing scales with me, and that is also extremely important. So everyone's hourly, okay? Everyone's 1099. Everyone makes their own schedules too. One of my big secret sauce for my cold callers is I run them just like an Uber company runs their drivers. There is no Uber schedule. Imagine if there was such thing as an Uber boss. Oh, my boss says I got to drive from 7 to 3 today. Oh, shit, man, I hate that guy. Nobody would drive for Uber if they had a schedule, right? And very few people will cold call. Cold calling is the worst fucking job on the planet, second to being a dishwasher till 3 a.m. in a restaurant, okay? I have experience managing both, so I know exactly how to treat it. But because it's so tough, I give them quality of life. I let them decide when they want to work. And that's one of the big things. So the way my team works, in summary, is I have American cold callers, probably 15 of them. I have foreign cold callers, probably 2. Again, we're not big on the foreign cold callers at all. I had like 7 at one point, but I'm really just thinking about scrapping those guys. There's that big of a difference. It's almost not even, you might insist, but if we get more results with the Americans, it almost doesn't matter if you insist on foreigns, right? Then I have 2 administrative VAs. One I call order processing, skip tracing, list pulling, setting up the accounts. The other one does customer service, where they give text messages, emails, and coordinate with the order processor. Then I have 3 managers. I have a cold calling manager, 4 managers. That's so clear, 4 managers now. I have a cold calling manager. I have a general manager that I just hired. He works with me every day. I have a customer success manager, and she handles everyone after they purchase, right? And then I have my virtual assistant manager, who's basically also my customer service guy, but he manages all of the VAs that handle the texting, the calling, and the order processing as well. So I have my point people that I go to. So I'm not in the weeds of each individual person anymore. I'm now kind of dealing with leadership.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's great. And I like the system, and I like the focus on the American cold calling as well. And it's cool. And I see the excitement in your eyes as you're noticing of like your organization is becoming a little bit more vertical, where you are not at the ground floor. I mean, there's still only one level in between you, but you can't manage that many people by yourself. It's impossible to effectively do it in that capacity. But and I love the 1099 aspect of it, as well as like it really is a low cost business of you're only going to be spending this money if you're making money, which makes a lot of sense. But to get a little more, I don't know, into the weeds of the fixed costs or the systems that you're using. Where are you getting your data from? What are you using to dial? Like what software systems? And then, I mean, other than that, like, I can't really think. And then what are you using to skip trace, I guess?
Yeah. So basically with our data, we use CoreLogic data, okay, which is very good data. Well, let me start over so for houses, we use CoreLogic. For land, we use DataTree, okay? We found that I don't want to use houses on DataTree. One, DataTree is way more expensive. And CoreLogic we've been using for 7 years, so it works amazing on houses, okay? And then we recently upgraded to DataTree like 3 months ago. And the reason why is a lot of people, we were pulling it from CoreLogic and we were getting like nothing, like 1/8 of a lot of people like, I got this from PropStream. Yeah, let us repull that for you, because PropStream's literally going to have 1/8 of what's actually out there. They're not a land list provider. They're specialized in residential, and there is a vast difference. So we upgraded to DataTree for that reason. I pay them about $20,000 a year right now to provide that data.
And quickly on that, Nickolas, for that $20K a year, is that unlimited pulls or is that?
Oh, no. No, $20K gives me 3 cent pulls. So there's there is a cost to me no matter what, unfortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, at 3 cent pulls, and I'm super fair. So what I did is everything that's data tree, I increased by 4 cents, is basically. Now, the rule of thumb in business is actually to charge 5 times what you get charged for things. But everything else is so profitable. So I just sort of let me just break even here, for lack of a better term, and kind of keep it moving. But yeah, it's about 3 cents per record, which is great. So you guys might be saying, wow, even 4 to 6 cents per record, which is what I sell it for. If you went and you got your own data tree plan, if you're not spending that much, they're going to charge you 7 to 10 cents per record. So all that being said, you can skip them and then come to me and save a little bit of money too, if you just needed data. Then the dialer we use is Call Tools. Okay. I don't recommend Call Tools to anybody. The reason why is it's meant for companies like mine. Okay. If you're in-house, get Mojo Dialer. If you're doing it yourself, get Mojo Dialer. Only when you have a team of people you are managing should you get Call Tools. And the reason why is Call Tools is difficult. It's not simple. It's not easy to learn. I have a huge tech background. I've been a computer nerd since I was a kid. Thank God my dad bought me my first computer when I was 6. But that shortens my learning curve with these softwares. But even to me, Call Tools difficult. Okay. But worth it in the end. For skip tracing, we partnered up with this awesome company. A lot of people may have heard of them. We do use Versium for our skip tracing. They work out extremely well. They're a lot like Data Tree. You can get it from them, but unless you buy huge in bulk, you're going to be spending more on what we charge. So a lot of the things I do is really just arbitrage, right? Let me pay the huge amounts to get it at a price that's even cheaper than you would get it at. So it still makes sense for everybody, right? Versium at one point had a $99 file minimum. So 100 records, $99. 1,000 records, $99, right? So in some cases, I can chisel all that out. And that's basically our strategy, right? This is what business is. I acquire it for super cheap, and then I provide it to you at a profit. But because I can buy in bulk, right, I can get everything way down, and then we can both make money. You can save and I can make, right? And that's really some of the fundamentals. Everything, you mentioned my pricing earlier, everything I do and say to clients is exactly what I would want. We haven't touched on this yet, but we're no contracts, no commitments, and no setup fees, right? And it's because I remember when I signed my first contract with DirecTV fucking 20 years ago. I bet I still owe DirecTV money from that fucking contract, okay? I still wake up in night sweats over that contract. So I don't want my client signing a contract. It doesn't make me feel good. So I have all these principles of things that I've hated in my real life experience that I leave out of my company as well.
Sure. So yeah, you made me laugh when you mentioned the payroll tax. I remember how I learned about this is when I had hired my first W-2 employee, and I'm looking at what was drafted for my payroll company. I'm like, this is more than they're making. What's going on? And I realized there is additional tax on every dollar that you pay your W-2 employees on top of all the many other taxes you're paying. So important to keep in mind. And I really like how you set this up, because that's one of the biggest things that kills people, right? Is a huge overhead, and then they can't weather the down times. And so I'm kind of as a corollary to that, I wanted to dig in. You have 30-ish employees, a good portion for callers, but if it functions like Uber, how do you got to have some sort of threshold or some sort of fail-safe in process where if, Mason gets greedy and orders 100,000 dials next week, how do you make sure that that's going to be fulfilled if your employees can work when they want? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the beauty of the culture that I've created sounds risky, right? That's your point. Well, fuck, Nick, what if no one shows up? Yeah. Well, when you have great culture, the reverse happens. So now I have 13 employees, 15 employees. They know that they don't fucking show up for work. They ain't getting paid because there's other people coming to gobble up their hours. So the reverse psychology that wasn't planned, but that I learned, is that I've turned them into hungry wolves who cannot wait to, okay, is there any work available? I got to get my hours in. So it changes everything. Additionally, I have added in an incentivization for each person. Since there is no minimum hours or anything, I give each employee a $50 bonus each week, just if they work 25 hours a week or more. So as soon as you hit 25 hours, you make 50 more bucks. So if you know I'm dangling the carrot, so to speak, and saying, hey, I'm not your boss. I'm never going to tell you to work this much. But if you happen to work 25 hours, I'll throw an extra $50 bill on your paycheck. And that's every week they can get that. So 52 weeks a year, they can get me for that. So, and that also protects me, because the other thing I've learned is I don't really want a 40-hour-a-week cold caller. People get burnt out. I want you between 20 and 32 hours a week for optimal performance, because, 40 hours a week, you're going to drone on, you're going to autopilot, and we're going to see reduced results. So it's a great question. And I hope that, for lack of a huge ego here, my genius is showing, because if you notice, I have fail safes in every direction of, I have an answer for everything. So, great question, but everything, there's an incentivization and a threshold everywhere. The other thing I do with my cold callers is, if you do not perform, so this is what no other company does, I can guarantee it. If my cold caller does not average 1 lead per 2 hours, they don't work for me. Period. If you're not a great cold caller, I cannot put you in front of my paying customers. Right? The same way as if you're a crappy server, I can't give you an 8 top, right? So I can't give you 8 people if you don't know how to wait on them. So I actually evaluate my entire employees' leads generated, how many hours they work, and if they fall below the threshold, they're either suspended or they are, I don't want to use any negative words like fired or terminated, because that's not the word. It's not you're fired. It's, hey, I don't think this is a fit, And I always joke and I say, I don't want to make a shitty cold caller good. I want to make a good cold caller great, right? So I'm not here to take some schmo off the freaking street and turn him into a badass cold caller. That's not what I'm here to do, right? And so it's also respecting that aspect, which I think helps a lot too.
Yeah, a lot of good points made there, but I want to emphasize what you just said about, if you're hiring, there is a certain amount of natural talent and natural inclination that just can't be changed. And so I do personality testing that I've found to be very reliable. So to that end, right, you hit on my next question a little bit, but I'd love you to speak a little bit more on retention, incentivizing your people, making sure they're having fun and they stay with you for years. Because like you said, cold calling isn't fun. And so what I've done is I try and gamify it the best way I can and remind them, think of it like a video game, and try different techniques. We have our meetings and I kind of coach them and talk through different scenarios. But what do you do to keep these people in the long term so you don't have constant turnover?
So our average employee's been with us for like 5.5 years now, which is huge. Almost no turnover. I will say it does take 5 employees to get one great one. Right. And I think it's important for us to know our ratio. Right. So when I hire, let's say we hire 5, I know there's going to be at least one great one in there. Right. And that's just a fact. So I think I don't call that turnover. I call that hire. Right. In a sense, because once they're in, no one really goes anywhere. I think it's the quality of life first and foremost. I think that it's the bonuses, and you'd be surprised how many people, I'll never forget, I thought I created this business for me to make money. Right. But I remember when my first employee messaged me, oh my God, Nick, you've changed my life. I'm an Army wife. Me and my husband move every 2 months. I would never be able to have a normal job ever if it wasn't for you. And because of you, I can support my family from a hotel room. I can support, and it's like, I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know I'm changing my employees' lives too, right? I'm so focused on my clients and me that I don't even realize what I created, in a sense. So I think a lot of that comes from there. And I do encourage my employees to have fun. I remember one time I caught one of my employees doing online poker, and I was like, dude, I love that he thought I was lying to him. I was like, I love that you're doing online poker while you're cold calling. He's like, I'm not in trouble. I was like, no, I'm glad you're keeping yourself busy so you don't get too bored and then you're like yelling at people because you're all bored and shit. I was like, I want you to be entertained. As long as you can speak the script and take the notes, I don't give a shit what happens, right? And so, like, I'm a real, like, some people say they're an end result guy. I'm really an end result guy, right? Now, I will say that with the script in the beginning, I did encourage people to try to say their own thing because that's what I did, and it worked for me. But you know what? I don't encourage my employees to go off script anymore. Especially, I mean, we're doing 60,000 dials a week, right? I don't want to say we can't, but my inverse rule is this. But Nick, I'm beating myself up. I'm not getting any leads today. I said, well, did you say the script? Yeah. Well, did you throw in the rebuttals? Yeah. Well, then you did everything you could, so I almost used the script as a shield. If you're following the script, you're immune, baby. If you're saying the words, we can't make the seller say the words we want them to say, right? All we can do is make sure we're in control. So I used to tell people, and this is how I figured it out. I'll go into how I created my script, is I had a saying, and that is, there's always something that can be said to a seller that will unlock their heart. Okay? It's up for us to find those words, right? So what I used to do was I would say something the same way 5 times straight, and then I would change it for 5 times, and I would change it for 5 times, and I would change it for 5 times, and I would change it. And then I'm really mathematical. I'm a real scientific hypothesis conclusion person. So I'll just give you an example. When someone says they're not interested in selling, and everyone can write this down if they want to, here's what I created by using this tactic. Okay, because not interested happens all the fucking time. It's the most common thing. I was like, how can I overcome a not interested? Okay, well, the way we overcome a not interested is, I'm not interested. Okay, look, I totally get it. Would you maybe mind taking down my direct line and just giving me a call if anything ever changes? Like, think about the phrasing maybe mind. No matter what, yeah, I mind. Yeah, I can. No, I don't mind. No, I can. Like, no matter what, they're saying yes. We're literally tricking them into saying, yeah, like they get so confused, they just say yes. And you said it very softly too. But if you really think of the semantics of the word, yes, I mind. No, I don't mind. Yes, you can. No, I can't. That actually, no matter what, they both mean the opposite, right? So that was a great way to get a phone number down. Another little one I'll share just while we're on it is wrong numbers. My team is the king of converting a wrong number lead. And the reason why is this one little phrase. Hey, this is the wrong number. Oh, it's the wrong number, huh? Man, am I even calling the right state? Is this Florida? Oh, yeah, it's Florida. Oh, great. Well, hey, I buy land all over Florida. Have you ever considered selling before? So we just like loop them right back in, right? So these are things that I created that to this day, I created these 7 years ago when I was the only cold caller, right? And to this day, they kind of have been timeless. So that's kind of our cold calling journey and how I do that.
That was great. And I tried to write as much as I could down just to bookmark a few of those points. So like kind of circling back all the way to the beginning of you, it sounds like while you did well, you did not operate to your full potential and capacity and comfort whenever you were in the more corporate, politically correct environment. And I think that you have established a culture where that's okay in the organization that you've built. It's your business. You choose the culture. And right. I think the online poker example is hilarious because it shows that you understand human behavior. And there's a few things that shows you really understand human behavior just on your cold calling script and your strategies there. But I mean, a judge is more likely to hand a harsh sentencing down if they have to pee or the courtroom is hot. So right. If you can understand that of the people that are supposed to be the most unbiased people on the planet or in the United States justice system, you know that your employees, cold calling is fucking boring. It is a really, really boring thing, and it is defeating. But hey, if you're getting to play poker, play a game, and you're able to focus on it too, some people can multitask in that capacity of it takes no brain energy for them to do that, then fantastic. And you've built an organization that not only allows it, but encourages it, where you probably saw that response, that fear response from your employee of, he's like, please don't fire me because I'm forward. But I think that the service recovery points that you're making, which are kind of directly related to your rebuttals and some of your cold calling tactics and turning a wrong number into it, you wouldn't be able to have that if you didn't have all that restaurant experience, which, you see the dots getting connected of like dealing with a horrible customer. If you're in hospitality or the food industry, it teaches you how to apply that in all aspects of life. And you're going to get away with so much more if you're able to, make it humorous or admit your fault and admit you're wrong. And whenever your customer is upset, you better be more upset than your customer is about your screw up. And I think that you've kind of embodied that with the tactics that you've done. But I want to, some of the tactical management stuff, you mentioned that they can be put on, some sort of performance review or suspension if they're not hitting their numbers, which you said is, I think, 1 lead for every 2 hours. With your cold callers, because I've got my own biases and opinion, and I know Dan does too. Who do you think is the person that's getting 20 leads every 2 hours as versus the person? Is there a personality type? Is there a gender? Is there, who are the best that you have?
I think that's a good question. So it's like, the best cold callers are the craziest people, right? And they're people just like me. I was on a video with RJ Bates the other day, and I was talking so much, and he goes, "You're the perfect person to own a call center." He's like, "You don't shut up." He didn't say that exactly, but it's like, that is what makes someone who's not afraid to talk, right? Someone who's not afraid to fail, So one thing I do, and I'll tell you my hiring practices, and I might answer your question. Okay. So, and I'll actually answer all of our employment questions. You guys follow this tip. So the only indicator of a successful employee is one motherfucking quality: eagerness. If you're not eager, I don't give it. I can't fucking do shit with you. I don't give a fuck how good you are. If you, what else we got? What else we got? Yeah. I'll turn that person into the biggest badass anyone's ever seen, right? But I cannot make you eager. So what I do to do this is when someone wants a job, I send them my hour-long cold caller training course. I never follow up with them again. I send it to them and I say, let me know when you're done. If they never let me know again, they're never working for me. Okay? Then after they watch that course, hey, I finished it. Great. Take this typing test. Let me see how fast you can type. If you can't type 45 words a minute, you can't type fast enough to type and talk. Okay? If you can't type and talk, we're going to have shitty fucking notes. Okay? If we have shitty notes and great calls, my customers are going to think that it's a shitty call. Okay? So I have all these. So then you take the typing test. Let me know your results. I never follow up with them again. Then once they pass that, I then send them off to Mandy. She's my cold caller manager. She trains everyone on like a 5-day sprint. And we have to get all 5 days done within a 2-week period, or else you don't work there again. Like if your schedule is too crazy, we got to get this knowledge out, right? We're going to teach you how to use the dialer. We're going to teach you what to say. We're going to show you the script. You already took my course, or you know how to type. So it's really like software acclimation and then just support from Mandy. Then once that's done, we just monitor them for performance and check in occasionally, and it's really easy for us to really manage these. Now, back to your original question. Who's the best? So here's what I tell people. Everyone's like, women are the best. The women are the best. Okay? Especially apples to apples. If you have a brand new woman and a brand new man, the brand new woman's going to do better. Okay? Now, if you have a super seasoned woman and a super seasoned man, they're going to do the same. Okay? And we start to lose the gap. But right off the bat, they have more empathy. They're better conversationally. I think they're better at being authentic. I think they're more vulnerable. But, the trick is we want to get women to harden a little bit and we want to get men to soften a little bit, right? It's not always only women. I had a guy from New York. You'll see him comment on my post every once in a while. His name's Stephen Joseph, one of my first cold callers. We used to play World of Warcraft together when I was 18 years old. So he literally watched me become a millionaire through this company. So that's been cool. And he's from New York. Hey, you fucking guy. He's like, I remember one day I was like, Joseph, you sound like you're Steven. You sound like you're going to fucking break their legs, bro. Like, you can't, you need to inject more vulnerability. You need to go out of your way. Just out in the restaurant industry, one thing I taught, a lot of people have a shitty look on their face, right? They call that resting bitch face, right? So I would teach those employees to say please and thank you more often because their face said fuck you all the time. So you need to counteract the fuck you by being more polite verbally, right? So the same thing with cold callers. If they seem tough, we have to inject vulnerability and softness into the call. If they're too soft and people are plowing over them, we have to inject some hardness into the call. So I think it's about managing them as an individual, but also understanding where the strengths of each person. People listen to an authoritative man on the phone sometimes, and sometimes they don't. So it's pretty interesting. And let me just full circle it real quick. People call me and they go, so do I get one dedicated cold caller? No, you don't. You get my whole team. And for the reasons I'm just speaking of is the benefit. Because the tough guy from New York might call tomorrow and then the soft woman might call from Louisiana the next day. And that is what we need, randomized interactions with a series of great people, not just, Joe sucks. Well, Joe's making every call and Joe's having a bad day. With us, if someone is sick or anything, you don't even know it's none of your business if anybody's sick. I got 15, 14 other people to work. So those are kind of the built-in philosophies and safeguards I have.
Nickolas, your genius is showing because there's a few things there that I've seen in my business, and then we'll talk about statistics for a second there. But I'm bringing on 3 1099 people to do similar stuff, cold calling as well as just warm lead follow-up and just hiring them as acquisition managers. And I did the same thing. I sent them a course. I said, do the course. Let me know what you think. Follow up with me next week. 3 of them did exactly what I said. One of them didn't. He hasn't followed up with me yet. And he was super eager, super interested. And it's like, well, dude, if you can't it's just a test of you don't need all these skills of understanding the entire land flipping business to be successful in an acquisitions role. But I just wanted to see if you would listen to what I said. And I think that right there shows that eagerness or that hunger where you want to hire hungry people because they want to work. And if they want to work, they recognize I won't make money unless I am working. And I think that's really, really fantastic. And then just on your point of inexperienced women doing better than inexperienced men, totally makes sense. I think men are going to be more kind to a woman on the phone, which is going to let them at least follow the script and potentially get more deals as versus potentially hang up right there. But whenever you make the point of the experienced man versus the experienced woman being pretty much equal in their success in this position, it's just a regression back to the mean, which is the Stephen Joseph from New York, which is funny that you and your friends all have first names and as both first names and last names. But he's going to appeal to a subset of the population that, Nancy from Louisiana is not going to appeal to. Where some people can stay on the phone for 45 minutes and hear a story about your grandpa and everything else and do it. And then you put Dan on the phone and he's blowing his brains out as soon as the conversation hits 4 minutes long. And so there's going to be a different appeal, and it ends up equaling once you've been on the phone and you've made enough phone calls. It's like I was in Vegas last week. I keep complaining about it. I played blackjack. I lost 10 hands of blackjack in a row. That just doesn't happen to people. And I played the book and I'm just said, fuck it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I get it that if I kept playing, theoretically, assuming that they're not shuffling with 2 decks every single time, the house always wins. But I think it's the point of don't let anything other than your skills hold you back in these positions. But it's important to examine and look at the data, because if you're shitty at cold calling, don't cold call. if you're following a script and you've done everything, that might not be the position for you. There's other opportunities out there, but man, you got me excited. You're doing cool stuff, and it's funny seeing the similarities between your business that you've created that's on the very front end of what Dana and I do every day, and how many similarities there are in the processes, and hiring and systems and everything. But I'll pass it to Dan as we start to hit the top of the hour.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the same thing Mason mentioned of what you do about sending those tests and then not following up. I tell my property managers to do this with potential tenants of, if you send them the application and they don't get it back when they said they would get it back, do not follow up with them. I don't care what they say, they're out. They're out. Absolutely.
Right.
So no, strongly agreed there. But, Nickolas, I second everything Mason just said, but we're getting towards the end of the show here, so we want to start moving it towards wrapping up. Is there anything any questions we should have asked you but didn't?
I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know if we talked about the company. The company name is leadminingpros.com. I think maybe just maybe how to find me, how they can get some of this, and maybe also speaking a little bit about the extreme service that I personally provide. Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say
that's our next question.
After that one is, where can people find out more? So go ahead, advertise, talk about whatever.
Pitch yourself hard.
Yeah. Well, God, this is actually you guys did such a good job. It's one of my favorite interviews. This whole thing was like an ad for lead mining, but not the normal. This was like why our operations are more superior than a virtual assistant, right? If I was to name this in category, I'm always marketing in my head. But so this was really cool for me. So I wowed myself, so I'm sure I wowed some people watching too. And, but so, I think some of the big things is, my website's leadminingpros.com. All right. And one ninja tip is if your website is your business name with .com at the end of it, include the .com. It took me 4 years to realize that, but very rarely can you say the name of your business and exactly where to find you at the same exact time. So think about that ninja tip. It's a twofer. But leadminingpros.com, my cell phone number is on the website. You can book calls with me directly off of the website. You get me directly in almost every case. And the way I work is I'm like your Yoda. You want to use the Force, you come to me. I tell you how to get the best results. I tell you what's worked for the 7,000 clients that came before you. One example is if you're in houses, I have a saying, as suburban as you can stand. That's where we start with houses. We're not starting in Atlanta, Orlando. We're not starting in Houston or Dallas. We're not starting in Phoenix or Southern California. All you house guys can take note of that. Do not do lead generation in those places if you're new. Okay? That is a professional place. Okay? And unless you have professional funds, don't go in there. All right? Trust me. I'm a lead generator, okay? But so I give guidance like that. I'm not like, oh my God, you're going to close so many deals. I never talk to a single customer like that. I say, this is how many leads you should expect if this is your kind of market. And then this is how many leads close. So our average client closes 1 in 12 to 20 leads is what they generally see. And I have a saying that once you hit 20, if you don't have a contract, you miss something. That's not a statement of blame. It's a statement of please go back and sift through all the leads again, right? It's just to inspire my clients to do that. I do offer free courses and free group coaching every week. We just started free group coaching on Tuesday. Okay, it was a total hit. It's completely led by my customers. So I don't have curriculum. What's your biggest problem? That's how I start every group coaching call. So a lot of people, when I get done talking, they're like, wow, this is too good to be true. How could you offer this for free and that for free and only sell the leads, which you mentioned was a reasonable price? And going back to my first statement, we're on track for 1.8 million this year. I'm going to bring home probably 1.2 out of that. And every year I add, this year we did free courses and free group coaching. Every year I'm like, how can I serve harder? How can I give more? And the reality is a lot of people could think, how could I do that? It's the smartest thing I've ever done. My marketing budget, you're going to hate me for saying this, My marketing budget is less than 0.5% of my total sales. It's crazy. And it's because everything else I'm doing is my marketing budget. All the free stuff, all that effort, me taking all the calls myself, me meeting with all the clients myself. That's my marketing budget. But it's what I love. Like, I can't even tell you. So I recently went on vacation to Phoenix, and I stayed 5 days longer than I should have, and than I planned on. And the first 5 days I didn't work, and I was kind of getting into a funk. And I was like, man, what's going on? And then one of the days I had to work all day, I had a bunch of sales calls and client meetings. And dude, that shit cheers me up so much. My clients are the happiest people on the face of the earth. And you know what? One thing I do is I meet with every client at the end of every week. If they want to, it's optional. And if they even aren't happy, seeing my face and seeing me show up for the call and seeing me in the trenches with them, it's magical. I have not had a person yell at me in 3 years. And as a business owner, especially lead gen, like that is really hard to manage. So I think also realizing that this is you said it earlier, I'm sure you could see it on my face more than I can, but this is my fucking passion. I mean, I get to make other people rich while becoming rich. I mean, could it be any more fun?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Nickolas, I mean, that was fantastic right there. We appreciate your spirit of generosity that you have in all your business dealings. And it is his cell phone on the website. He's better than the rest of us. That is his phone. And you can call him, and he provides excellent service. And he, I think, did a great job explaining what his business is, which is arbitrage, which is exactly what our business is. So allow him to arbitrage your own business. He is, it's more affordable than, hiring in-house, and the service is amazing. And we had a ton of fun with this conversation. So Nickolas Nick with leadminingpros.com. This is Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost with the Big Picture Blueprint signing off.